I'm Linda Deer. Welcome to Linda's Weekly Guided Insights, a weekly gift of guidance from my spirit guides on navigating you through the uncertain world that you are now living in. Published every Tuesday since 2014. In this episode, the guides will be talking about the purpose of journaling. So, Ray, what do you have?
I was thinking, Linda, why do people take great pains to document something as temporary as a vacation or a trip, but they don't take the time to document their lives?
That's the question. So, what Ray's talking about is really how most people do it. In fact, it's the norm. You're going to see how the norms from before are no longer, they don't make any sense. Why did we do things that way? What was so normal about them was that everybody did the same thing. It felt comfortable. It felt normal. Okay, so you take a vacation. Pretty cool thing to do. A week off, 10 days, the family. You know, it happens once in a while. So for some families, it happens every year. And you go to great lengths to document just everything about that vacation. Everyone's using their iPhones, and they're taking pictures of everything and videos, and they're showing it to their friends. And it's more like show and tell than it is about telling the truth. I mean, do any of those photographs or anything you're telling anybody talk about the parts that aren't really so good? Do they really talk about the truth? About what they realized, what they saw, what they weren't allowed to really discuss or tell anybody? Or they would be out of favor with the family or the friends or the coworkers or whatever. We live in a world of make-believe. It started when you were a little kid and your mom or dad read those bedtime stories to you. Well, I want to break the mold, because look at humanity. Look what's going on in the world. Where has that gotten us? That's why I wrote these journals. That's why I told my story, my true life story, guided. I started journaling when I was 7 years old because my life was in danger. I had no one to talk to, but boy, did I need answers under the pressure I was under. That's how I learned it. That's how I mastered it without knowing that's what I was doing. It was my last resort because I couldn't dare talk to anybody, being the 50s, the 1950s, about anything I was experiencing. I took that photograph of my guides. I've seen them since I was a baby, since I was 20 months old, when they saved my life. And when they showed up again in 1994 at Christmas time, and I happened to have my Nikon camera in hand, film days, 1994, and I took their picture, but no one else in the entire room saw it. I said, "Did you see this?" They said, "No. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? See what?" You guys, this is why you need to start a journal. It's certainly why I had to, okay? None of this would have made sense, and I would have never told my story if I hadn't had that clarity from the journal writing I did from the time I was 7 years old. I learned to have a conversation with my guides, with these light beings. I got that conversation going through my journal writing. These journals are the companion journals to Guided. That happened because of the enormous amount of fans that followed me after they read or listened to Guided. And they wanted to know what Guided teaches. They wanted to learn what Guided teaches. And there came the journals. These journals are specific to how this works in your life. Unravel your life and show you who you are and why you're here. What could be more important than that? Nothing. So that's why these journals exist. I'm going to go through a few things in this insight. Whatever you do, sign up for Linda's weekly guided insights. It's on my website at the top, all over the place, the bottom, the sides. Okay. Linda's weekly guided insights. They're free, they're priceless, and they come out every Tuesday. All right. So what you will become conscious by documenting your journal in your journal so you can carry out your purpose. How do you know what that is? Everyone asks all the time, who am I and why am I here? What's the point in all this? Why should I keep going on and on and on when it's just the same? It's like Groundhog Day. It's the same old thing. It's repetition. It doesn't seem to make any sense. And it's true. It doesn't make any sense at all. It didn't make sense to me when I was a little kid and I had everything working against me and I couldn't make sense of it and I wouldn't dare talk to anyone about it. But the journal writing allowed me to purge that out of me and lay it on the pages. And when I was done doing that, when I did my journal writing and I saw it on the pages after I wrote it, I'd look at it, I don't know, a week later, 2 weeks later, and look at what I wrote. And I'd go, oh, I couldn't see it when I was in it, but I could see it upon review. The point is, once it's on the pages, you don't have to worry about remembering it. You got this thing, okay? Nobody can tell you it didn't happen. It's not the truth. It is to the truth. You wrote it down as soon as it happened. This is about writing in your journal for 15 minutes a day. That's all. It's having a conversation with your guides. That's what this is. It sneaks up on you. You don't notice it until you write it down 15 minutes a day. And then you go back and you go, let me take a look at what I wrote from the last week, from the last month, from the last year. Let me just flip through. These aren't real long. These don't take a lot of work. You go through them and you go, oh. And what they do is they break it down into 4 different questions, right? Write it down, whatever that is, whatever you became aware of that day, what was unusual or out of the ordinary, what just popped into your mind, a dream you had, whatever it happens to be. Somebody came up and said something to you that was like, what? They didn't even realize they were sent in, literally sent in to convey a message to you and then go away. But if you didn't write it down, like a dream you didn't write down that you forgot, and you will forget them, you will lose it. You will be missing one of the vital 15-minute moments that you didn't write down in your journal, that one day of your life that brings it all together. That it doesn't mean you miss your life. It just makes it less rich. It makes it less targeted. It makes you a little less sure. You already doubt yourself. So don't add to it by missing one of those 15-minute meetings with them. Because that's what's going on. You can't see it when you're in it, but upon review, when you review what you wrote, you will be amazed. You will start to see things that you never could have seen before. All right. It's connecting the dots. So this is why journal writing, it's not an option, you guys. If you really want to pull off the reason you came here and live a life of purpose, you have to write it down. You have to keep track of how you're doing. You have to track your steps. So if you keep this locked up inside, I'm talking about you. If you keep yourself locked up inside because you're worried about somebody, what they might do or say, what somebody might think, what could happen to your job, or your family might abandon you, or they may think that you're cuckoo. If you're worried about any of that, You really need to start journal writing before you lose it. Okay? Because you're going to start to feel like all kinds of things. You're going to doubt yourself all the time. You're going to, you maybe won't even like yourself anymore. You'll feel irrelevant. You won't feel, you'll feel like you're being tolerated. You will like yourself less every single day. That is not who you are. Okay? So stop that by doing this. It's real simple. But any of you who have not yet listened or read to my flagship book, Guided, the way I did it, the story of my life, my memoir, my autobiography, then doing this won't be quite as easy. You want to hear or read Guided first to understand how I did this, all right? That's going to pull you right in. You're going to recognize yourself and remember things along the way where you are finally primed perfectly to start doing the journal writing. All right. It's a journal writing system. It's a guided journal writing system. It consists of 3 books: reading or listening to Guided first, getting my guided journey next, and part 3 is my journal writing. Okay. So what I really recommend you do is start out with journal writing, my journal writing part 3, so you can see where you are right now. You know, you really have to see where you are before you can take on part 2, because part 2 takes you back to where you got interrupted, where you got knocked off your path, where you originally took the blows. Okay. All right. You took on the shame and the guilt when it was not yours, it was theirs, but you assumed it, and you forgot where you assumed it. Part 2. Okay. 3-part system. Okay. So, I'm going to just cover a few things here before I close today, and the guides are going to close this session with their closing message on this, so you see how they play in to the conversation you will have when you do your journal writing. It will become the most important meeting of your day. All right. So following the standards of everyone else is what got you in this mess. Okay. So it's something you've longed for, knowing who this is, knowing why you're here, knowing your purpose. Stop doubting yourself. Stop putting yourself down and blaming yourself when it was never your fault in the first place. Okay? And listening to the guidance, believing it's the guidance. It is the guidance. You guys have to quit doubting yourself so much. But you won't be able to do it until you start to lay it on the pages. You're going to prove it to yourself. You can't see it when you're in it, but you can see it upon review. But you have to do it just 15 minutes a day. And whatever you do when you do your journal writing, do it where no one else is around. Make sure you do it where no one's going to walk in the room. The phones aren't going to ring. The kids aren't going to be banging on the door. Nobody's going to interrupt you. 15 minutes a day. Where do you have to go? Take yourself so you can have that 15-minute, I'm going to call it breather. Because the first thing you do before you start writing is breathe. Before you start writing in your journal, you just let it come through. You just breathe until you get out of your own head, until you get that yawn breath. When you get and stretch your upper body and you get that yawn breath, there's nothing better than that yawn breath. All right. You might even feel tears coming out of your eyes. You guys, that's when you really have released the stresses from your day, from your life, so that when you write it down, you are writing down the truth as clear and real as it happened. You're not making things up. Whatever you do, don't make it up. Okay? And the first time you write it down, it may just be a little smidgen of you daring to come out. So write it down again. Give yourself another chance to write it down. The truth. You're going to find out just how much the truth has scared you. You've been scared away from the truth. You've been afraid to tell the truth. You've been afraid to speak your mind, especially now after what's gone on. Who can you really talk to without offending somebody? This is crazy. You need this journal. This journal will let you purge the truth. Nobody can hurt you here. And most importantly, and I'm going to end it with this. When you're done writing in your journal, when you keep writing in your journal, you keep this in the safest place you can possibly imagine, just like that place you would have hid it when you were a kid. You hide this. Nobody gets to see your journal. Nobody, ever. Because if you do that, the next time you write in your journal, you will forever and ever water it down. You will no longer tell yourself the truth. And when you can't tell yourself the truth on these pages, you've got nowhere to go. So do not tell anyone what you wrote, what you think. This is for your eyes only, right here. Keep your guidance to yourself. This is not just you coming through. This is your guides communicating to you like automatic writing. And no, you are not crazy. Okay? All right. Okay, so we're going to move on. And if my work has changed your life in any way, please share what I do with your like-minded friends. And like always, the spirit guides and I love your comments. So keep them coming. All right. Okay, Ray. So let's do the closing message from the guides, from the spirit guides and angels, from the light beings that have guided me my entire life. And here they go.
So, what is the purpose of taking the time to journal? You may be able to remember what you had for dinner last night, or maybe what you had for breakfast a week ago. And you'll always remember a wonderful meal you had 5 years ago at a famous restaurant. But the purpose of journaling is not to just remember, because as you get older, the memory gets weaker. You tend to exaggerate your memories, if you can remember them at all. No, the purpose of journaling is not to remember, it's to understand your life. And the way you do it is to write down the things that happen, or even just pop into your head. What was different or unusual today? Write it down and get it outside of you so you can study it. Ask why it happened. What was the significance that made it happen now? When you do this each day, you are putting together a, a storyboard of your life. You're writing down the truth, your guidance that weaves a storyline. You don't have to remember if you write it down. All you have to do is go back and read that story again and again.
So you remember you have help. You are never alone and always being guided.